What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. It's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video. Alright, this video is just a general video discussing the Oklahoma City Thunder and how this trade will affect them going forward. One thing I do want to put out there, there is a certain level of risk involved with this trade. The level of risk is this. Even though they didn't trade that much for him, once again, Victor Oladipo did not have that great of a season. In my opinion, the numbers may say something different, but from watching it, I didn't think he had that great of a season. And Sabonis is a prospect. Paul George is what it is. He's a one-year rental, and Oklahoma City is a small market. And Paul George, from all the commercials, seems to be very interested in his brand and building his brand and being kind of a global icon type player. So it's kind of hard to see him staying, but for whatever, for this season, and they didn't trade that much for him for this season, to see how it goes, I applaud the move from Sam Presti. But I want to talk about like how he's going to fit in with Russell Westbrook, and not even just Russell Westbrook, this team. And to really understand how Paul George is going to fit with the Oklahoma City Thunder, we kind of have to wipe last season out of the picture. So this team was the third seed in the playoffs in 2016, and when they had Kevin Durant. Let's look at the other players surrounding Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, because this team, the team they have now, was built for Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. They had Steven Adams. They still have Steven Adams. In that playoff series, and not even just the series, in that playoff run, people thought Steven Adams was emerging as one of the better bigs in the NBA. That's how good Steven Adams was playing, and he's so freaking big. He was a monster on the court. When he was setting screens, when he was scoring in a post or whatever, not necessarily back to the basket, but scoring in that area. People just thought he was an absolute beast, which he was. Now, last year, he didn't rebound well, but we all know why he didn't rebound well. It's because they dedicated that season to seeing if Russell Westbrook can set a ridiculous record or break a ridiculous record, which he did, so mission accomplished. I totally expect Russell Westbrook to take a step back from the rebounds, and Steven Adams will assert himself more in the paint or whatever. So I expect Steven Adams to skip last year, to continue what we saw him building on in the 2016 playoffs before, right? So let's move on to some other key players. Terrence Ferguson. Now, a lot of people may not know Terrence Ferguson. He was a high school blue chipper. I don't know the situation. I don't believe he wanted to go to college. I believe he wanted to make money or whatever the case may be. He went to Australia, played for one season. You didn't hear about him. And now Sam Presti had the presence of mind to see his talent, wait it out, because they knew they would have a late draft pick, and then go get him when he came back. He obviously identified that guy was good. And I think he's scheduled to be a 3-and-D guy, somebody who's lock up their offensive assignment, their defensive assignment, and hit open corner threes, just what the doctor ordered in that system. Now, I don't think he'll start, because they got another guy that I'll talk about in a minute. They still have Taj Gibson. I don't believe he's a free agent, and even if he was, I believe he would resign. It's a good situation. Him and Russell Westbrook are good friends. I've always liked Taj Gibson since USC as a player. I remember at USC, I tuned in to watch USC intending to watch O.J. Mayo, and in watching O.J. Mayo, Taj Gibson was constantly the guy who popped off the screen as the best player on that team. I absolutely think he will stay. He might end up being the starter. I don't know for sure. They like Enes Kanter coming off the bench and giving him that offensive punch. He's a great player. He's a great defender. He's a good rebounder, and he's a good pick and pop type player. He won't shoot threes, but if you take him out to 18 feet, he'll knock that down consistently. Jeremy Grant, they re-signed him. I believe they did the 1-year deal or whatever to keep him in tow. He's a very good young player, very athletic, can shoot the open three if given to him, can play both forward positions, can defend. I like Jeremy Grant at all. He was one of the standouts last year, but the problem is they didn't have enough talent. Like, they had to ride Russell Westbrook so much that it made the other players look kind of bad because the players who couldn't create their own offense. But Jeremy Grant is definitely a good piece to have. Let's talk about Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter seems to be, just from watching, seems to have some kind of, special friendship, not special friendship, but a good bond with Russell. I noticed they seem to be their like favorites or whatever. Enes Kanter is a very good rebounder. He's a very good offensive post player. Once again, that's a skill set that's not really valued in the NBA anymore like it used to be, but it's still very effective. Let's go back to Oklahoma City with Kevin Durant in the Western Conference Finals again, or that whole playoff run. Enes Kanter, having Enes Kanter and Steven Adams on the court at the same time was very, very difficult for defenses to match up with. Those are two really big guys attacking the boards. Enes Kanter getting a lot of offensive rebounds. The problem is when they ran under Golden State does what they do, which is basically cause the mismatch. And if you try to switch on them, they'll basically take your worst defender and have them on an island with Steph Curry, which is what they did to Enes Kanter a lot. So, but Enes Kanter is a very, very good post player. He's big, he's a good rebounder, a good offensive rebounder. Once again, this team was built around around Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Once you put Paul George in that Kevin Durant role, he fits that area pretty good. This team goes right back to being one of the best teams in the NBA and a team who should have beat Golden State that year, who was up 3-1. They don't lose that much with Paul. Yes, they lose some of the freakish scoring and length, but they still got some of the length. They still got some of that scoring ability. It's just not as much scoring ability. Paul George is just not as good as Kevin Durant, but he's a lot better than anybody else that you can put into that position, right? So once again, I love that they were able to acquire him. Let's talk about Doug McDermott. This is a guy they didn't have. This is a guy they got last year. This is a guy who's a good shooter, just a good shooter of the basketball from anywhere on the court. He can't defend. That's why he can't stay on the court. But if they can figure out a way to get him on the court, and he's not a free agent either, and really use him to his strengths, I think he'd be, whether it's a sixth man or just instant offense off the bench or whatever during the course of the game, I think he'll be strong for them as well. So let's talk about Andre Robertson. Andre Robertson is one of my favorite players on this team. Why? Once again, this whole video, I'm skipping the year. The MVP year by Russell Westbrook was outstanding and all that stuff, but I'm skipping it. We going back to 2016, that playoff run. Andre Robertson, the way they used him in the offense, he was a better shooter back then too. He was a better three-point shooter. I don't know how you get worse as a three-point shooter when you should be slowly getting better, but he was a better three-point shooter. But even more than that, his off-the-ball movement that he got from Billy Donovan, the little timing, the little back cuts to the basket, he was killing teams with that. Like, his defense is what keeps him on the court. He's an outstanding defender. He's basically like Tony Allen. He's probably not as physical or whatever as Tony Allen, but he's probably as good of a defender. It's just not the same type of defense. Instead of a physical on-ball pressure defense, it's more of a position and using his length to his advantage defense. And he's used to playing post defense, so he can switch to bigs, and he's quick enough laterally to switch to guards. He is an outstanding piece to have on this court, and he's going to be the starter at that too. He was playing out of position last year. He's a shooting guard in the NBA, but Billy Donovan uses him as in a lot of different positions in a lot of different areas. He does need to try to improve the three-point shot. He needs to try to improve the free throws. That was probably the most embarrassing thing I've seen in the playoffs in a while, when you have a shooting guard or a small forward out there and he can't hit a single free throw to try to get something going for your team. All they got to do is keep fouling them and putting them on the line, and it's a waste of possession each time. that stuff is back breaking. So he definitely has to get better. But I definitely like Andre Robertson on this team. And now that he's going to be switching back to guarding shooting guards, you know, Klay Thompson types, James Harden types, I think he'll give these guys a lot of trouble. And, you know, you don't have to waste Westbrook's energy trying to guard these guys. Another thing, I think Westbrook can be a good defender. Once again, I said this in one of my other videos. When you have these outstanding offensive players, they're not going to be good defenders. You only have so much energy. You waste more energy on defense than you do on offense. If you're an offensive player and your team needs your scoring to survive, like Oklahoma City needed Westbrook scoring to survive, just to survive in the game, you're not going to be able to play good defense. It's just not. It's not possible. Nobody has unlimited energy or whatever. You have to pick your spots and choose where you're going to exert yourself. All right, but that being said, I believe Russell Westbrook has the ability to be a good defender. If you have Paul George taking pressure off of you offensively, and then more importantly, look at the length. Paul George plus Andre Robertson on the perimeter. That's going to be out, depending on how the coaching goes, that's going to be an outstanding duo guarding the perimeter against anybody, against San Antonio, against Golden State, against whoever you want to put in that sentence. That's going to be tough to guard, to score against. You have Kyle Singler, not going to say too much about him. And then you have Russell Westbrook himself. The guy was a triple-double last year, but the year before, a force, he was basically destroying Curry the first couple games of that series. So I feel that Paul George added to this team will make them the second seed in the NBA. Second or third, but I don't like what I see from San Antonio. I don't see them getting better. I see them losing pieces. And this was a big gain for Oklahoma City. Houston added a big piece, but I don't see too much more being added to Houston. So I think this move can push them right to the conversation of the top of the Western Conference. All right. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree, leave your comments. All right. See you next time.